Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I am joined with an amazing guest, Mr. Surasit Sachdev. Surasit is the CEO of Hungry Hub, a unique dining reservation web app in Thailand offering exclusive fixed price concepts at a normal a la carte restaurants. Hungry Hub offers exclusive deals that are not available for walk-in customers or customers who call to reserve with three types of packages for Hungry Hub customers: all you can eat, party pack, and experience. As a born entrepreneur who loves trying new foods and eating at new restaurants, Surasit combines his passion for gadgets and reservation problems to create Hungry Hub, who works with about 2,000 restaurants, seated more than 4 million diners, sourced more than 3 billion baht for our partners. Mr. Surasit, thank you so much for coming today. How are you?
Good. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So, Mr. Surasit, in the introduction, I mentioned a little bit about Hungry Hub. So, my first question to you is, can you please explain what inspired you to start Hungry Hub and how did you come up with this idea for the customers? And when you first started, what did you hope to achieve when you first started?
Yeah, so Hungry Hub, thanks for having me on the show. Hungry Hub actually started about 10 years ago as an online restaurant reservation system. But fast forward like 3 years later, that model didn't work. So we pivoted into more of a dining offer platform. And today, I think we position ourselves as an online travel agency for the restaurant industry. Um, and how did I come up with that idea? It was simply just wanting to do a startup. My family was in the hotel business. I actually wanted to do an online hotel booking system. I love tech. Worked in a bank for 3 years doing tech system implementation, but then wanted to do something new from zero, from ground up. And that's how it got to Hungry Hub. A hotel booking system was too competitive. The all the players were spending $1 billion a year on ads and stuff. And at that point of time, there was no venture capital money. So I decided why not get into a more local supply, local demand business, which is restaurant reservation. Fast forward, that model didn't work, but yeah, we pivoted into something else, and that's where we are today.
You mentioned that you pivoted from many different models. As you were going through those different changes, what did you learn and what more insight did you have that you applied when you decided to pivot to a different model?
So I guess you try to make it work, right? And then of course, what a lot of startup in the first phase, the idea that they have that they're going to start is not usually the one that end up being successful with, because a lot of times you come into the business not fully understanding and not tested, not trying to make revenue from what your idea was, right? So obviously the first business model was restaurant reservation system. We try to uh, basically make it more convenient and efficient for customers to be able to make reservations without having to call restaurants and be able to make it online 24/7 by connecting it to an inventory system that has can be managed by restaurant and has real time basically calculations. However, since in Thailand there's oversupply of restaurants, you can pretty much call and make a reservation anywhere, or walk into a good restaurant and get a table without having to book it. Even it's not the same case as the US or Europe. That's why there was players like Open Table, like Chope, like other players where in their countries there's more of a need to do a reservation system, whereas in Thailand there's oversupply of restaurants, and the need is more about finding more customers for the restaurant sustainably. And that's why when we pivoted, it was more about the vision of sourcing more revenue for restaurants sustainably. But on the consumer end, what we made it different was it was more about having exclusive deals, good deals. But the key about Hungry Hub that's different from everyone else is every deal on Hungry Hub is fixed price, and you know exactly how much you're going to pay before you enter the restaurant. So we create exclusive either sharing set or all you can eat packages that is net price, including service and tax and food and drink. So that you pretty much know exactly what you're going to pay before you enter the restaurant. And that's why people love the Hungry Hub experience, especially for group dining, special occasions, birthdays, corporates, or even people wanting to go to somewhere premium or somewhere new and they are afraid to try how much it's going to cost. Or we have exclusive deals with those places that you have to book through us to be able to dine in that manner. So that's pretty much why we have been successful so far.
So for a lot of my audience that knows about Hungry Hub knows that you've been in the business for 10 years now, 2014 to 2024. So that completed 10 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, so one period of time which might have been a bit of a struggle was COVID. And I would like to ask you, in that period of time, what was it like in this particular business, and how were you able to manage to overcome the challenges that came with COVID?
Sure. I mean, the lucky thing about COVID is it impacted everyone. So it wasn't just impacting us. Of course, restaurant scene was affected quite badly because there were lockdowns where you couldn't basically go out and dine at restaurants. So for us, what we started doing was, of course, turning ourselves into delivery service overnight. I think within 2 or 3 days of lockdown, we launched delivery. But the way we did was a little bit different because we were targeting premium restaurants and buffet restaurants. We were selling set packages delivery. So we was think of us as selling the value packs and the party packs and the large sets and the premium sets exclusively on Hungry Hub. And of course, when you sell the sets, you get discount incorporated, whether it's 20% to 50%. Or you get buffet restaurants that never really done delivery, but through Hungry Hub, you're able to eat your buffet meal at home in a set structure manner. So it helped us stay relevant. It helped us survive through COVID. Of course, we were still losing money because it was like a new business model overnight, but we were able to recover half of our losses during the 3, 4 months of lockdown. And then when it turned around, the good thing is a lot of restaurants were relying on tourist business, especially in hotels. So we saw that opportunity. We went head on, grabbed those restaurants that were potentially our target market, but we could never get them before COVID. So use that as an opportunity. Got them on board, got them excited, brought them locals. Um, and then yeah, we as a company we grew 4x through COVID. So compared 2019 to 2022, most of the startups just recovered in 2022 or 2023. We were 4x than before. Every year we grew 60 to 80% year on year during COVID. We launched staycation where we bundle rooms and F&B together because hotels didn't want to lower the price and locals were not going to stay in hotels. So instead of hotel slashing price, we bundle the F&B and hotel room together and activities. So it made it relevant for the customers to become like an experience. Yeah. So we tried different things, right? It helped us grow during COVID, but of course, when COVID was over, we stopped delivery, we slowed down staycation, so that got reversed, but the core business was growing.
So that was roughly around, I would say, a bit over 5 years, maybe 6 years in your journey from the 10 years. So a bit over half of
Yeah,
the journey. So taking you back and taking my audience back to the start to 2014 when you
yeah,
initially started,
yeah.
you as you reflect back on the journey and going back to where you originally started, is there anything that you look now that you would say you would have done differently looking back?
Yeah, very much so. I wouldn't have hired tech to build the website or the app or the system. I would validate the problem. I mean, if I was going to build a reservation system, I would just create a fake door. People book through texting me or calling me or creating a very simple WordPress website. When they click, it triggered like a Google request to me, and then I go and book for them manually without building the system or anything, and see if there's enough demand before really building a system, because we could have tested and realized that there was no real need. And even second business, when we created packages and stuff, we could have done just a Facebook post on the package and let people email or call us when they want to buy those packages, and we could have easily sold without having a website or an app. But luckily, when we built the second business, we already had the first one ready. So we didn't change much. We just changed the restaurant booking into like a restaurant selling package. So we were just saying this restaurant, this much all you can eat price. And if you book the restaurant, meaning you're booking the package. And then we slowly build the system on top once we validated that one restaurant can have multiple package, weekday, weekend price, and all that kind of thing. So we slowly progressed and learned from our first mistake on investing so much money in tech without validating the problem. So for me, I think starting a business today is very, very easy. You can build a website using AI. You can build tools. You don't need to hire expensive talents to test different things. Artworks can be done through Midjourney, through Canva, through free pick. There's so many tools out there. There's freelancers and stuff like that. So I think today it's just much easier to launch a business. Of course, the opportunities, the simple opportunities, the global startups becoming more widespread. So every startup opportunity is being explored in different parts of the world. But I think there's always room to grow. It's not, I don't believe in the model of like copying, which we did in the first thing. I don't think every market needs every startup. So if you build a startup that is relevant or needed by your market, then I think it'll serve the purpose.
I think one key point that you mentioned was AI, and you mentioned like starting a business, today is quite easy. And with the use of AI, I'm pretty sure that the AI landscape over the next coming years is going to grow exponentially. Do you see AI as a threat to Hungry Hub, or do you see it as a tool that would maybe increase the visibility or how people would perceive Hungry Hub? Do you see it as like a competitive advantage or like a threat?
A tool any day. Um, I mean, if AI can basically take over Hungry Hub, then it's gonna affect way more than Hungry Hub, and I would worry about the bigger problem that it creates. But I think what we've created is a network, a community, a human touch, a relationship that is not can be easily overtaken overnight. Um, and I think that's basically if Hungry Hub gets disrupted by AI, then every other industry, global trillion-dollar companies will also be similarly affected. I think, of course, we need to adapt with the times and leverage the power of AI. And if we don't do that, we might get disrupted by other companies that use AI better than us. So I think that's more the mindset that I have.
I totally agree with that. I think, you've been with the company for so long that you've kind of grown with the company. Like we mentioned, there's a lot of pivoting that has been done. And a lot of my audience who are watching this that want to be in a position like you, maybe 10 years, 20 years down the lane. Is there anything that you would like to let them know, like a heads up on in terms of like the responsibilities that you have as the CEO of the company and running your own company, coming up with the idea and how to navigate through like difficult challenges.
I think first of all, you need to have a mindset that you're not doing this because you want to get rich, because there's other means to get rich. Um, I'm not saying that startup is you're gonna be poor, but just to give you a a context, right? What I'm earning today, I could have earned the same 12 years ago when I was working in the bank. When I left the bank and I got an offer for like pretty much similar salary as what I'm getting today. And this is 12 years after I've left the bank. So it's not about short term to richness, but I guess it's long term. You're building something, you're making change, you're creating a difference. And of course, this company is like growing enough, it's profitable, it has a shareholder. We have like 60 people working in the company. It's creating positive impact to the ecosystem, to the country. We're getting being parts of like conversations with governments about improving tourism in Thailand and F&B and changing the landscape. So it's a different, I think, role and responsibility. It's not, first of all, I'm saying it's not money oriented. You shouldn't do it because money oriented. Second, don't think it's easy and don't think it's short. Like you will be rich in 3 years or 3 months. Most startup takes at least 8 to 10 years to start to see the fruits of it. Uh, and I don't think we are at a point where we say we are successful yet. But I think it's part of the journey. You have small successes here and there. Recently we were featured in Forbes Asia 100 companies to watch 2024. So these are small success that we get. We got Entrepreneur of the Year by Thai Indian Chamber of Commerce. We got uh, Thai Startup Association choosing us as one of the 8 startups in the million user club. So I mean, there are along the way some success, but it's not the end part to why you're doing it, right? You need to have a very clear vision. What are you got to be passionate about the problem you're trying to solve, because you got startup is like a company where you have to sleep with it, eat with it, live with it, breathe with it. So you have to really have that passion to push, choose the partners carefully, because you spend more time than your girlfriend or boyfriend or family member at home. Especially in the early days, the first few years, you be working very hard together, whether you need to travel together, you need to, if you're not particularly want to be it's not the people you want to spend time with, then you got to reconsider starting with them. Yeah, I mean, these are a few points that I think are very important to startup founders that they should be aware about.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think my audience can also relate and agree the fact that, Hungry Hub is a very successful business in their eyes. Maybe in the eyes of you, Sir Sid, it might not be what you want it to be, but like you mentioned, all the accolades and all the achievements that you have prove that this business is a successful company, and there's a lot more that you want to achieve, and I know you can achieve as a company. So looking forward into this year, what are some of the goals that you have for Hungry Hub?
Yeah, I mean, the vision that I have right now of the company is we want to make F&B industry to be more long lasting. Similar to how hotels, they don't just open and shut down because they don't have customers. Uh, why do restaurants have to open and shut down 90% of them within a year? Because they don't have enough customers. Because there's a lot of restaurant owners are not marketers, and restaurant business don't generate enough revenue that you can hire really experienced or talented marketer. And there's no outsourced company that is really helping restaurants achieve their sales that are commission driven, like how OTAs does for hotels and flights and activities. So the question is, why can't there be an agency that help restaurant? And the simple answer is, how does the agency make commission if you don't know the price tag of a restaurant? And Hungry Hub, basically, we've created that price tag for the restaurant. Hence, we are able to build a commission and we are able to distribute them on. So today, to be a complete online travel agency for the restaurant industry, what we want to achieve this year, one is we want to bring tourists from all countries that are top 10 visitors of Thailand to be able to be aware of Hungry Hub, at least 20-30% of the tourists to be able to aware, and maybe 5-10% of them transact through Hungry Hub while they're in Thailand or before they fly into Thailand, so that they can spend more on F&B in Thailand. That's one. Second is we have recently expanded to Singapore. So we want to, of course, uh, be a strong player in that market. So we want to achieve maybe 300 to 500 partners on the ground in Singapore. We want to be able to um, scale the number of users and number of bookings that we get in Singapore. And third is we want to be a true online travel agency, which means we want to build dynamic pricing into the system. So my question to most audience and most restaurants around the world is, if in the hotel or in the airline or in any service industry, you can price each customer differently, why in the restaurant industry you have to price every customer the same way? Simply put, why does a customer sitting in table number one and table number two, if they order the same dish or they order the same set, have to be paying the same price? If one person books a month earlier, one person books the last minute, if it's a Friday evening that is a busy Friday evening or like a Chinese New Year, does it have to be this price the same? If it's, so the question is, and how easy is it to launch new pricing? Today, you got to reprint the menu, you got to relaunch a new package and re-promote and all that. But if you can just change the price on the fly, or if an AI can recommend you a price based on how well you're doing compared to competitor, compared to benchmarks, and suggest you pricing, that's what I want to solve and help create for the restaurant industry. Especially, people say everyone flock to Michelin star restaurant. But if Michelin star restaurant has so much demand, and why can't they match the price to the demand so they can maximize their profit, rather than sell the same price every day and be booked out 3 months in advance? Why can't they be booked out only 1 week in advance, or one day in advance, but fully get the highest price that they can, similar to how hotels do it and airlines does it, so that they can manage supply and demand? And that's what we are trying to bring to the restaurant industry, so they can manage if they're running low, if this Friday evening they're running 50% behind their target, they can do a flash sale real time and be able to catch up if the deal is interesting enough. That's something that we want to try to adopt and be able to do this year.
That was a very thought-provoking sort of questions that you had, and I really see through with the vision that you have, Surasit, and I hope that this year you're able to achieve, and like you mentioned with the fruits, you can get all the fruits that this year has to offer. And just to pivot back to what we touched upon a little bit earlier is your life before Hungry Hub. You mentioned that you were in the corporate world and you were there for a bit, for 3 years, and you decided to make a change. You decided to make a leap and decided to create Hungry Hub, this startup that we have today. What motivated you to make this change and what pushed you to do so?
Good question. Um, Luckily for me, first year in the bank, in the Standard Chartered Bank, I was working in Thailand. Was able to get the opportunity to grow and work at a regional head office, which is in Singapore. So I grew from an operations support role into a business analyst role in my second year. And then in my third year, I got offered as a project manager role within Singapore. But every year I was able to get a very high salary jump and big role change. And even at the end of my third year, I got a major growth opportunity to be like middle management based on my results and etc. But then I realized that as you grow in middle of every organization, a lot of the tasks that you do is kind of in between pleasing the boss and doing a lot of red tape and like documentation and stuff like that. So for me, I wanted to create something that's more impactful, and I wanted to build something 0 to 1, something that never existed. I didn't at that point. I was like, I can open a laundry shop. I can open a exchange counter, or currency exchange or anything. At that time, I didn't think about startup or tech. I love tech, but I just wanted to build a company that never existed, and I want to challenge myself and build it from 0 to 1. But one thing I never wanted to do was to be able to need to be sitting at my storefront of my business every single day to be able to operate it. So what I wanted was let my business work for me, not I have to work on it all the time. So like today, Hungry Hub is running 24/7. So even if I'm sleeping or I'm on holiday or I take a 1 month leave, it's still generating revenue on its own without need for human interaction or intervention. So that's simply put why I pivoted from a corporate world, which is probably more relaxed and more high paying, and into something that's more challenging and satisfying for myself.
It's great that you were able to pivot to something that you, like you mentioned, it's satisfying for you. And I think the job that you have is really important because, like you mentioned, with the startup, you live with it, you sleep with it, and it's something that grows exponentially over time. And one of the key parts of your journey is when you went to Sasson School of Management, and you are one of the notable alumni of that school. When you first pitched the idea of Hungry Hub in university, what was that experience like? What did you learn from that experience, and what was the sort of response and feedback that you got?
So when I joined Sasin on my, I think, introduction week, they're like, "Why did you come to school?" I said, "I came to find co-founders." So I pitched. I got like almost 10 people excited about it. Got in a room, and then I pitched to them about Hungry Hub, the reservation system, this, that, and beyond. And they all like laughed at me, and they're like, "We're here on a holiday. We're here to basically take a break 2 years. So we're not interested to work on any idea. Maybe towards the end of the degree, we can re talk about this, but not now." So I was like, okay, I made a wrong move somehow. But then luckily, the second year student was trying to do a business plan competition, and I didn't know about this going into Sasin. But Sasin basically supports students to go and compete by supporting their flight ticket, hotels, and other things, and even like some setup fund or research fund. So we got that kind of basically support and a mentor and a facilitator to help us basically get into these competitions, and we applied and we got in and we won quite a few competitions. So I actually got to learn how to build a startup, got learn how to pitch, how to sell ideas, meet investors, talk to investors, get feedback. So we were actually doing the business. I just left because the second year students that were running it, they had a different vision from me. And they were graduating, so they were ready to run it full time, and I was still doing my second year. So I said, okay, I don't see the same vision. So you guys are full time now. Why don't you run it? So the company is still running today, but it's pivoted in a different manner. It's a fruit-based like company. And yeah, and then second year I just said, okay, now I've already learned the ropes. Let me try to restart Hungry Hub and try to regain the group. So one of my co-founder from that business decided to join me on Hungry Hub, and I recruited a few more. And yeah, then in my second last half of the year, I was at Wharton for exchange in University of Pennsylvania in the US. And yeah, I did started working on the tech side. And when I went back after I graduated, I went ran with it. So first 3 years was a failure, but we learned a lot, and then we pivoted into the current model.
That's great that that experience was transformational, and I think it's also great to hear that the person that you partnered up with in university has his own company and is doing well for himself. And even though you have different visions, as long as he's able to be fulfilled, like you mentioned earlier, I think that's the best part about doing the business and growing over time. When you first started, one thing that is really important is market research and understanding the market and getting an idea of what is out there. So when you first started, how was your market research like when you first started for Hungry Hub? And how has it helped bring uniqueness to this company that it is today?
Yeah. I mean, basically we did market research while we were at Sasin, and we tried to leverage off the other students that were interested in doing projects together. But of course, that was a model that failed. We asked the wrong questions. We went to ask the restaurant whether they would be interested in software like this. But what we really needed to ask was, we were going to make money if the consumer books our deal. But we never asked the consumers that, is there really a pain point in reservation or restaurant reservation? So given that basically kind of made us fail, is that we didn't do enough research. And yeah, I guess the second business model, we did better research, we understood our own problem, and then we of course were doing business with the restaurant for 3 years. We understood that they really need more customers. They didn't like the discount model. And usually more startups succeed because of that pivoted model, because they've been with the customers for long enough to understand the real problem.
When you started to develop Hungry Hub, what entrepreneurial skills did you develop and found useful when you were created this company?
I think when I was starting out, luckily because I did the other startup while I was in, so I got to learn how to do a pitch deck, got to like present to investors, register a company, recruit the co-founding team, how to split shares and all that kind of like the groundwork, right? The corporate governance, setting up how to approach customers and setting up emails and everything, all that, even though it sounds like it takes a lot of time and effort to learn that first time, right? But when you're doing it second time, you have the agent where you can just call and be like, hey, I want to register a company. Here are the documents. Like when you register the first time, how do you do it? Who do you find? Is it too expensive? You're gonna take 3 days just to find the right agent to register a company. But when you do it second time, it takes you time 10 minutes. Right? You just send them the IDs, send them the write up and everything. It's pretty simple. But it's just all about when you that's why there's value in experienced founders versus first time founders, right? Of course, now you learn different things. You learn how to hire, how to fire, how to scale, how to spend millions of baht on marketing, how to do employee stock option, how to fundraise, how to register an overseas company, how to open a bank account. There's a lot of things that is important but gets overlooked, and it's just doing it the second time is 10 times easier than starting it the first time.
So we're approaching the end of this interview section of the podcast. And before we end this section, I would like to ask if you could voice one unique message to the world, what would it be?
One unique message to the world. Uh, I mean, for me, I think one of the startup is like it's a humbling experience. I mean, of course, when you start, you're not gonna get this spotlight on you, and you're not gonna get a lot of that. And you shouldn't do it because of that, right? A lot of times people say, I want to be famous like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or whatever. And I don't think they ever started because of that reason. And if you started because of that reason, you're probably not gonna make it all the way to there. I think you really need to be super passionate about what you're gonna do, because there's gonna be a lot of time where you get punched in your gut and be like, you should stop, right? It's many, many moments. And a lot of time you feel like you're alone. But if you have the grit and you have the perseverance and you really want to solve what you've signed up for, then I think if you work hard enough, there's always a way. It's just very, very rare that I see really, really hardworking people and like going on the right path, and you get hit on the ground and you just have to give up, right? I mean, there are probably times where you have to give up. What you're doing is not right for the market. Um, but I mean, if you really pivot and keep finding, maybe it's not what you started. And many times it's not what you started, but there might be an element in there that is big enough, good enough for you to do, right? It just may not be $1 billion company, maybe 100 million, maybe a 500 million, and it should be good enough. So I think one is, don't start a company because of money. And second is, don't start a company because of fame. Start it because you really want to solve or um, create a better solution for a certain problem out there. That probably will be my message.
Awesome. That's a great way to end the podcast, the interview section of the podcast. Thank you so much, Surasit, for your time.
Thank you.
And anyone here who's watching this for the first time, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you enjoyed. And I'll see you all for the next episode. Thank you.